It says record. Yeah, it's recording.
Oh, the red light's over here, not over here now.
Yeah. Well, that sucks. I liked it down there.
Yeah.
Because if you got other windows open, you can just look at your taskbar and see that it's recording. Well, that's stupid.
Right.
That's just plain stupid.
They moved the recording light.
All right, you ready?
Yes, it doesn't take much.
No.
You know.
All right, here we go.
I got an extra cushy pad.
Yes, I gave you an extra cushion pad.
And now for something special. The unit is self-contained with its own saddler, farrier, wheelwright and so on. It's a rigorous training, dished out who know all there is to know about horses, and it brings results.
We take you behind the scenes now to show just some of the interesting aspects of this training.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein, the best podcast, the #1 podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stein is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF1 accreditation. On this week's show, we're going to talk terminology, anaerobic, involving the I'm going to skip that anyway. And also another caption out of Tony Gonzalez's book, The Cindy Story. And also a case study of Hank, a hoof without an outward sign. All this and much more will be discussed here on Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. And over to my far right side is Mike Stein. How are you?
I'm doing okay, Travis. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing okay now.
You are okay now.
I am okay now. The reason why I say that is because I don't know if you know this, Mike. You saw I was taking down my fence and redoing all my fences out there. I've got a triple rail wooden fence out there.
Yes, you do.
And each section was about 10 foot across. And over the years, we've had it up for about 10 years. The sections were about 10 feet. And the boards, the 2x8 boards have bent down and bent up, and with the horses pushing on them, and the fence just looked like a whole mess. It looked like it went through a hurricane after a while.
Right.
So what we did is I took all the boards down, all the slats down, piled them up nice and neat, flat stacked them and everything, and then went through the process of pulling up every single pole out of the yard, moving each one of the poles down to an 8-foot section, re-putting the pole in the ground, concreting that pole in the ground, and then cutting the boards that we've taken off that were 10 foot that are now 8 foot, and reapplying them back to the fence and fence posts to create a tighter section of fencing.
And you think that will keep a horse from tearing it up?
Well, here's the thing. Once we're all done, we're going to put a hot wire around it. So, they always stick their necks right through the bottom slat because the grass is always greener, right?
Right.
So we're going to put a hot wire to keep them off from leaning on the fence, because that's what was happening. People would come up on the driveway
and they'd lean on it and push it over.
Yeah, and the fence runs about 4 foot off of the main driveway. So if we have guests over or anything like that, oh, look at your horses, aren't they beautiful? And they go out there and pet them and stuff, and the horses will push and think that they got treats and everything. So that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to just make the fence, and that's the front pasture. The front pasture
right.
of our property, so everyone sees that. And if you got a real nice house,
the rest of it you can keep it up with old baling string and yeah,
right. The stuff on the backside of the property, we don't care. But the front side, we want to be somewhat, very nice looking out front.
Right.
So that's what we've been doing. And also,
so I do it backwards from that.
What do you do backwards from that?
Well, see, I got the nice stuff out back because we look at it, and I got the front part looking like, oh God, who lives there?
Some homeless Joe.
That's why I still own every truck I've ever had.
Right.
I'm going to use one of them as a planter.
Are you?
Yeah.
So another thing I've been doing here on the property. Now we're in the middle of June, the second week of June. And with June comes more rain here in the Carolinas. Now, we broadcast just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, a little town called Marshville, population 2,500 people. Yeehaw, right, Mike?
Happening place.
It is happening, jumping. Well, one of the things that happens here this time of year is we get a lot more rain. Now, I was born and raised in Orlando, Florida. This is the start of our hurricane season.
Right.
So part of the hurricane season here in the Carolinas, it just gives you hot, dense, nasty rain. And it's not like Florida rain where it just boom, 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 and it goes away. This rain sticks around. So with the rain sticking around now and the hot and the humidity and all the stuff and the combination of, and if you do your calculations right, that breeds flies, or we have flies now.
Right.
All over the place. Granted, we have horses, we have horse manure, we have horse stuff, everything.
It breeds hoof rot and white line also.
Oh, well, yeah. And we'll talk some about that here later on the show. But you walk on our back patio or back porch area, you walk down at the barn, you walk anywhere where food gets dropped or horse stuff gets dropped, you've got flies around you all the time.
Right.
Do you know one of the best ways to keep flies from quote unquote hanging out with you or around you or in those areas?
No, apparently not.
So they've got all these different things on the market. They've got the fly bags,
right?
Which is basically you dissolve this one bacteria and it smells like rotting meat. And my wife goes, "Oh, they work so good. Look how full the bags are." I'm like going, "Yeah. We had 200, let's say we had 200 flies on the property, and you open up this bag that smells like rotted meat. Now we got 1,000 flies on our property. We just need to handle the 200 flies that we have here. We don't need to bring any more to us."
I bet you got more than 200.
Well, I'm just speaking, just so you can do the math and the ratio.
Well, the cows across the road, you're kind of drawing the flies off of them and doing the cows a favor, right?
Exactly. So why don't I do one of these bags and put it over in the neighbor's property and let all the flies go that way instead of having it on our property and them coming this way?
I like the way you think.
So, my neighbor comes over, he goes, "Hey, do you know how this got on my property?" And you just, "Nope, that's the
Never
weirdest.
seen it before.
That's the weirdest thing. I've never seen that before." And he's got horses across the street too. But one of the things, I don't know if you know this or not, Mike, it does two things. It cleans and it smells great. And what that is Pine Sol. You ever used Pine Sol before? It's been around since the dawn of time, I guess.
Never heard of it.
So Pine Sol, of course, is a Pine Sol cleaning ingredient or cleaning compound. And if you do a 50-50 in a pump-up sprayer, so if you've got a 1-gallon sprayer, you do half a gallon of Pine Sol, half a gallon of water, and you spray everything. The floors, now, of course, not the food and all that stuff. You spray the main aisle of the horse of your barn.
Right.
You spray areas where flies just tend to congregate. Like on our back porch, we have a dog. And the dog sometimes has accidents on the back porch, which is good because it's a back porch. You can just hose it off.
Right.
But there is some kind of residue left back there.
There is, yeah.
So, and then we have chickens and they come up on the porch and sometimes they have residue that leaves behind them.
Yes, they do leave some dew behind them.
And compound with cats and everything else. So I've been taking my 3-gallon pump-up sprayer and walking around the property and just basically just giving it a nice coating of Pine Sol and water mixture. And it actually, like I said, if you had 200 flies, now I'm down to about 25 flies in my area that aren't getting into the house, that aren't, as soon as you open the door, like 6 of them sneak in and go, wee, right through the door.
Right.
You're chasing them around the house for the next 3 days until they die. So that's what I've been doing this week, Mike. I've been fixing my fence and spraying Pine Sol everywhere.
Yes.
So what have you been doing lately?
Well, last night I was replacing batteries in the truck because it wouldn't crank.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
Oh, Jonathan dug up. There was a half-buried well truck on the property. Yesterday, since the metal dumpster's coming, I was getting metal and ripping down sheds and stuff like that in the rain, so I looked nice and wet. But, that's the only time I had to do it, and my wife wanted me to do it when the lightning was there, and I just didn't want to, but that's another story.
As she's on the computer filling out the life insurance policy
right.
and upping it up to, double the price.
I do have one question when you're talking about hurricane season.
Okay.
Now, did they teach y'all in Florida to stand outside and hang onto a post and holler, NEM, where's Toto?
That's a tornado. That's a totally different aspect.
Well, you could get some tornadoes off of,
Believe it or not, there is a group of people, and I kid you not, there are a group of people down in South Florida. I mean, I'm talking backwoods people. They actually form a group, and they go out to the beach.
Right.
And they fire their weapons into the direction of whatever hurricane's coming close to shore. If it gets like within 50 miles, they literally go down there and just start firing their weapons off like a bunch of nincompoops out there thinking that's going to turn the storm away.
Well, it's like in that balloon that drifted over Rock Hill in South Carolina and all that. Somebody was telling me, the sheriff was broadcasting, telling people, don't shoot at it. It's too far out. So you can't shoot it down. the bullet's got to come down somewhere.
Right. Well, these guys.
But you are in South Carolina, talking to South Carolina.
Well, South Florida, they're out there shooting it into the ocean, thinking they're going to turn the hurricane away. So we got lots to talk about, lots to get into. And if you'd like to ask Mike Stein a question at any time, go over to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says contacts. Fill out that little form. And we also have a prize pack, so make sure you put a return address in there, and we'll send you out just for being part of the show. And we appreciate you.
You know, it's amazing how much stuff we go through on that.
I know. I mean, I'm constantly, like every month, re-upping all our orders for keychains and buttons and stickers and stuff. So if you'd like to be part of that and get some free stuff, a little prize pack from us, go over to equinedynamics.com, fill out that little form, ask Mike a question, and then put a return address, and we'll send you out some free stuff. All right, guys, lots to get into. Stick around. You listen to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back. Talking terminology?
Yes.
You have a lot to talk about this, because sometimes we just fall flat.
I can talk about it. How long we need to talk about it?
At least 8 minutes.
We can do that.
Okay. You ready?
Right.
All right. Correction. Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. Make sure you follow him over on YouTube. For every podcast we do, we also have a video. We have a visual portion. Actually, the whole entire podcast is recorded here in our studio here in Marshville, North Carolina. And you can see the video. Mike's got a whole bunch. He's got a coffin bone that he left here last week. He's got a hoof over here. He's going to talk about that as well. And anytime we have pictures or videos or anything that we talk about here on the air, you get the visual aspect over on YouTube. So make sure you like and subscribe to him over on YouTube as well. That's Equine Dynamics Mike Stein. And over to my far inside is Mike Stein. How are you?
I am doing wonderful today, Travis. I'm getting to see you.
You know what's funny? You said you were out there in the rain, breaking up all this metal and sheet metal and getting an old tractor or old truck out of the ditch in the backside of your property. And you were out there in the rain. You actually look cleaner today, Mike. For some reason, your face is cleaner. Your hair looks cleaner. Maybe it was that rain that washed up.
Probably. Yeah, probably. I at least I had a shower yesterday.
That's what I'm saying. All you need to do was have Jonathan, who was helping you, throw you a bar of soap, and you would have been all set.
Why didn't I think of that?
You probably the dirt and the grease and the pumice of being out there in the dirt just kind of scraped off a layer of filth on you.
Right.
So, all right. So, talking terminology. What we do here on the show is we go over some terminology, if you're not familiar with it, that you might hear your farrier, you might hear your veterinarian talk about, or just anyone in the barn in passing. And we try to define them so you can be educated, and there's nothing more important than furthering your education here when dealing with horses or equines. So this week, we're going to talk about the anaerobic. Anaerobic, is that right? Am I saying
anaerobic?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the anaerobic. Involving or requiring an absence of free oxygen. Most often, when we use this in reference to anaerobic bacteria in the hoof. So tell us what we know about anaerobic and her bacteria in the hoof.
Yeah, the anaerobic bacteria, like your white line type, damage. A lot of that is anaerobic. And
when you say anaerobic, I always think about exercise for some reason.
Well, you're pretty anaerobic.
I am very anaerobic.
Aerobic versus anaerobic. Yeah. Anyway, the white line type fungus, a lot of that is anaerobic. There's sometimes bacteria. There's also that a lot of times there's a combination of a fungus and a bacteria. And, when we have that kind of damage, we need to treat a little bit as we go. That's why if you've seen the medicated wax that I use under a horseshoe, when I'm shoeing a horse, I pretty well don't have any problems with it that unless I inherit it when it moves in from somewhere else. But when you clean those things up, or if you have a wall that's coming apart, or if it's really bad, sometimes you remove the wall. Actually, I rarely, if ever, remove the wall anymore, especially on a working horse, because we'll talk about that a little later. But when you're building over top of that, you need to make sure everything is clean. If you just build over top of it without cleaning it up, it's not aerobic. You wrap it up in plastic. You make sure the air's away from it, right?
Yes.
It doesn't like having air to it because air will kill the non-aerobics. So then you provide the perfect environment for it to go crazy. So you clean it up well, you treat it. if you build over top of it, which I do have to do because I've got a horse in competition if it shows up, there are ways you can medicate your build material. And you can treat underneath, and if you do a good job of that, it can be fine.
And what do you put? What kind of medication do you put in there in the material? I know you've said it before, but I
use, copper sulfate powder,
That's
like a
what it
real fine powder, and mix it in. And those bilge, if you get enough of it, you'll have enough of it on the inside. And some of that stuff is the bilge material is a little more porous than you would think. So it will kind of slowly leach out and at least cover the area. And if you throw if you have those bacteria in a Petri dish, you can drop a penny in there and the bacteria will literally go to the other side of the dish and it will kill it off because the copper. Now, years ago, we used a lot of copper, but then it seemed like everybody said, oh, my God, that's terrible, and everybody got away from it. And now there are so many treatments out there that have copper built into it. And then you have the gas where you gas it and whatever else. So there's, but it needs to be taken care of.
So copper is a natural antiseptic, I guess, is
Well, it kills the bacteria, or it can. And, copper sulfate powder, I definitely wouldn't eat it. There's, when you're doing some of these chemicals used on feet, you should wear rubber gloves. And I use the nitro gloves because with some of those build materials, will actually some of the chemical will penetrate the latex, and there's in the build materials. So I use nitro gloves, and you treat it. And it grows down, and you don't have a problem anymore, right?
When's the most popular time to have this?
Hurricane season.
So we're right in the middle of it.
Warm and wet, hurricane season, and a lot of the stuff came out of swamps down in your part of the country. And so I think you started it.
I did start. Well, Florida. I'm not going to take full credit, but I was down there when they.
We're going to give it to you.
I was down there when they discovered it. So.
Well, one of the thoughts is they filled in all the swamps and started raising racehorses in swamp country, and then all of a sudden it popped up in Kentucky, and it popped up in New York, and it popped up here and there. And I think there's farms where it is in the ground because you're constantly chasing it. But then that is, it traveled on farriers' tools, it traveled on horses going places, it gets in the dirt. And but just make a regular habit, and that's why I use those wax sticks that are medicated wax. And after I fit the shoe, before the shoe goes on, I give a good smear of the wax stick, and they go on with the shoe, and that way you've got a treatment under the shoe. And
you bring up a good point, Mike. You said that stuff travels on your tools and stuff.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you do or do farriers do to take precaution as far as if they've dealt with, for example, an abscess, and there's a lot of blood and a lot of mess with an abscess? Once those tools that you've used to take care of an abscess, how do you prevent any of that transferring over to another horse?
Well, one of the deals was early on with this white line is they had a Clorox in their tools, which ruined your rasp, and it turned rust brown. And then our friend Bernie Chapman down in Texas was doing a lot of research on it, and they were actually testing the different. Having people sending samples at one point. This has not been done in years, but they came up with about 30 different things that white line could be, and any combination thereof. And then most of the time it was multiple things causing it. So then they decided, when your tools are out in the air within a short time, it's probably killing it on the tools anyway. So we kind of got away from it. But I know that I've had situations where, because a horse was into laminitis and you had strangles and everything, where I wore a jumpsuit, and you washed everything, you washed all your tools, you sprayed everything with WD-40, everything was covered, you peeled off all your covers and stuffed it in the bag, and hopefully you were in a situation where you did that at the tail end of the day. The bag, whatever goes into the wash or whatever. And there are some disposable jumpsuits, and in quarantine areas and some of these vet schools, you'll wear soft slippers over your boots and everything else. But when I did have had to do that with a horse that had strangles, because when you were dealing with laminitis, that's a life and death thing. So then boots are Cloroxed, everything's washed. You want to catch it at the tail end of the day. You want to wash your boots before you get into the truck. Clorox clean, disinfect, whatever it takes before you get in the truck, because then you just put it on your floor mats. And then the next day you step on your floor mats and you go walking off with it, right?
So me and you, Mike, audio trademark. Me and you, Mike, you and I are going to come up with some kind of spray. Like, I know you as a little kid, I'm sure you've fallen and scraped your knee and got a strawberry on your knee, and your mom runs and grabs Bactine. Remember Bactine?
Yes.
And you'd spray on it, and what would happen? You would scream, and then you blew on it for whatever reason. It didn't hurt anymore.
Well, we painted the orange stuff on everything.
Yeah, the iodine.
Yeah, I think it was methylate.
Oh, methyl, yeah.
Orange and it burns.
So we need to come up with some kind of spray, whether it be a trigger spray or some kind of chemical, where as soon as you're done with any horse, just kind of lay your tools out and make sure that whatever chemical we figure out is nice and user-friendly for your tools. It's not going to ruin them or corrode them or anything, and yet you can be confident that you're taking these almost like your haircut. When you go to a barber or you go to the dentist, they're always doing that stuff.
Right.
Of course, they would have to do that stuff, but I mean, just something like that. So we're going to do that. We're going to make $1 million and $2 million and $3 million doing that.
Right. And if you get stuff stuck in your rasp, I mean, I've always got a wire brush. You brush the garbage out of your rasp. One thing that keeps your rasp working a lot better, a lot longer. The price of materials these days, you need to do something.
Yeah. So when I make the $5 million, I'll give you 10%. Sound good?
I'll make it. Let's just cut it to 2. That's all I'm worth.
Mike, you're so greedy.
Yeah.
All right, guys, stick around. When we come back, we've got another caption out of the book from Tony Gonzalez, PBM, A Diary of Lameness. And Mike, I'm going to read out of it. I'm going to do the best I can early here in the morning after my first cup of coffee, and we'll see how that goes. So we're going to talk about the Cindy story when we come back. Stick around. You'll listen to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back.
I'll get back in the rhythm by the time we're done with this session.
All right, here we go. I guess I'm going to read today. Let's see how this goes.
Did you get it to come up?
It saved it, but I don't know where it saved it to. So I'm like, forget it. I'll just read it.
You need my glasses?
I need something.
I'll bring you a magnifying glass. That way you don't have. I don't need glasses.
I didn't until this past year, but I think it's because of, my high blood pressure. I don't know if that messes with your eyes or not, but yeah.
Sticking your fingers in them all the time messes with your eyes.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
All right. Let's go back here. There we go. Oh, well. It's probably not the best look back there, but all right.
You're there. It looks good.
I know. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. If you have a question for Mike Stein, or if you'd like for him to perform a clinic out at your location, go to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says clinics, and he's got a whole entire truckload of things that he can bring out to your location, whether it be horses' hoofs, legs, feet, femurs, bones. He's got a full skeleton without the rib cage of a horse that he can assemble right there on the property. It's a medium-sized horse, and her name is Dolly. Doesn't have the rib cage, just for transportation. And you can see the way the horse moves and what bones connect to the what bone. And he has a great big clinic presentation that he can do at your location. Just fill that form out there, and Mike will schedule you in as soon as he possibly can. And over to my far hand side is Mike Stein. How are you?
I am upright and moving.
Well, good. Now, last week we were talking about this book, PBM. PBM stands for, and I'm holding the book up here to the camera.
Proper Balance Movement.
Proper Balance Movement, A Diary of Lameness. And this is from your friend, one of your mentors, Tony Gonzalez.
Yes.
Just give us a brief little history again of you and Tony's relationship.
Yeah, first time I met Tony, I actually met Clyde Caldwell, which they worked hand in hand with a lot of stuff in 91. 92, I met Tony at a farriers convention. And caught him at the tail end of a talk, and he was discussing with a friend of mine, and he says, you got to listen to this guy. And we got talking, and I missed the next talk because I said something to Tony about a horse I was dealing with that when she was shod on the back end, because you always shoot the same on both sides because we want everything to match, right?
Yes.
She couldn't go in a straight line. And she kept throwing one shoe, and when she had the one shoe thrown off, she could track in a straight line. And so we got into deep discussion, and later on, going back and forth with Tony, doing educational stuff with him and all that, we became good friends, and went back and forth with Tony right up to the end of time for him. And we had a discussion. That's where Dolly came from. He was from A to Z. Anthony Zachary Gonzalez. He was from A to Z, from the beginning to the end.
Well, good.
And then he had discussed with the Dolly situation and all that. But Tony got me thinking in ways that I would have never thought that I would have thought as a farrier. How's that sound for stumbling through it?
That sounds good. I believe half of that, so.
Well, I'd make up at least half of it, yes.
Okay. So this is from his book, PBM, which is, again, remind me, I'm going to write it on the book somewhere.
Proper Balance Movement.
Proper Balance Movements, A Diary of Lameness by Tony Gonzalez. Now, here we go. This is the Cindy story. Now, this is stories that Tony's had. These are case studies that Tony has come across.
Right.
And so this is basically written in first-person narrative as far as if Tony was telling the story. So we start off with this chapter right here. Jeff had brought in a young Percheron filly named Cindy about a year and a half earlier. At the time, he didn't know that he was buying a potential serious trouble. Tragedy began to unfold for my old friend Cindy. Was a beautiful little horse, but she wouldn't do anything right. If you looked at her far enough, every horse can do something, but not Cindy. The professionals were baffled. On the phone, Jeff called it a no-win situation. The filly had gotten 3 different diagnoses, and each of them were the same outcome: no cure. The first diagnosis was the most logical. The filly had wobbler syndrome. Since I have never heard of this condition before, Jeff introduced me to this subject. Now, what's wobbler syndrome?
Wobbler syndrome is a neurological damage. And they wobble. They can't go in a straight line.
So it's a mental illness. Is that what they're saying? A mental illness, or
no, wobblers itself would be damage to the spine.
Okay.
And as I understand it, and somebody may say you're wrong, which that's happened to me a lot, but they stumble. They can't. They might go sideways. You might think the horse is like EPM. That's something that probably Tony never saw much during his time, because we really weren't together with that, and that might have been what we were calling wobbler syndrome. And but it's losing motor control to the back end for the most part. It says
degeneration of the vertebrae of the animal's hind end. The process has caused the horse to lose motor control in the hind end. The next diagnosis for Cindy was the filly suffered from having a pinched nerve in the neck. Now, we're familiar with that because I think Dominique...
We've dealt with that, with some neck problems with your mare.
Yes, Dominique.
Or your wife's mare.
Right. And for the most part, that's been helping out. She is not 100%, but she is more comfortable.
We got her a lot happier.
Yeah, based on the shoes and everything that we've been putting on her to correct some of those movements. And the book continues by going, the final and the wildest diagnosis was mental retardation. Pausing for a moment for a quick thought, this is Tony talking, I suddenly started to question the sanity of my profession. A mental retarded horse. Still, Jeff received a good professional diagnosis, and there have been a lot of thought and observation involving in each diagnosis of the filly. So Jeff explained that when he came to me and he heard I was experimenting with a new system of shoeing that seemed to work medical miracles, he was looking for a reason to hope that his filly could be healed. Obviously, Jeff loved this animal and had no intentions of having her put to sleep. Now, tell me, without getting any more, without having me read and bore everyone else. not bore everyone else. No one wants to hear me read. So tell me what actually happened. What did Tony Gonzalez do with Cindy to get her corrected?
Well, Cindy was not going in a straight line, and she was running over top of people trying to lead her, depending on which side you were on. At that point, he was dealing with a lot of pad work, and they padded her up on one side to get her where she could go forward, because horses come out of the womb twisted. Some of them don't get straightened out. And then there's the whole thing about, well, she's got one short leg. And there are some horses out there with a leg that might be physically shorter than the other. But as long as they can travel in a straight line, they're usually pretty all right. We don't have to do anything crazy with all of them. But the problem with a horse like that is typically over time we beat up one leg, beat up another leg. We're twisted around sideways. Eventually we have SI problems. You name it, it just compounds as time goes. As far as the horse is having more and more problems. And well, she's a sweet mare because she's quiet because she didn't feel like moving. But
so I have a question. You talk about the horse walking a straight line, Mike.
Right.
Now, you and I both know that
we can't walk in straight lines.
Neither one of us can walk a straight line. And who's to say, I mean, and how do you determine this? You know, how do you know if the horse is just lazy and just doesn't want to walk to the left, it wants to walk to the right a few steps and then walk to the left, especially like out in the pasture. Our pasture out there has a 7-degree pitch on it. So I know when a horse walks, it'll walk, based on its terrain that's underneath them.
Right.
So do you physically need like a large, flat, 0-degree pitch tarmac and put a horse on it to see if it physically walks straight? And even still, what if I'm walking and I see a butterfly to the left and I kind of graze to the left a little bit and all of a sudden I see a gopher to the right and I walk to the right to see what that gopher is over there? How do you make sure that the horse, when it's walking straight, is walking straight?
That is a good question, Travis. That is a very good question. Maybe we'll come up with an answer. But no, in using high-tech testing equipment,
fancy stuff.
one thing that we were doing if you had a level arena is, well, a few things. A rake and a tape measure. And you could look at stride length from one leg to the other.
So you can physically measure to
each
see
footprint. Right. And that'll throw some interesting things at you. Now we got to have high-tech equipment, right?
Right.
Well, some of the high-tech equipment, some of those deals, they've gone off with that. Some of them have disappeared because
they worked and they were fat at one time and then they go away.
They did, and there's so many variables, it's hard to pin it down. But just a limb rotation, and a lot of these horses that are uneven in the shoulders, a lot of people are like, well, the shoulders are uneven. Yeah, you're right, they are, and that gets into, he looks shorter on this side, but
okay,
he's shorter on this side, but then you look at the angulation of the humerus from left to right. Is the humerus at the same angle to the ground plane? Because if that humerus is dropped over and he's dropped his shoulder over, that's going to change the tension on that flexor tendon all the way down to the hoof. And you're like, oh, he's short on this leg because look at the alignment of that pastern to the other side. So then we can start looking at, and this gets into Ray Morris territory, what can we do with that shoulder to free it up? And then, the more I've dealt with this kind of thing, and Tony at the end of his career before he had the strokes, his goal was to do it without pads. Early on, he was working with pads, and I did too. And it scared me away from it because, I was having some weird things happen. You had some weird compression problems. And there was a big learning curve with doing that. But the more I've learned, just playing with the diagonal pressure in the hoof, and the rotation of the hoof and that sort of deal, got a lot of these horses straightened out without ever putting a pad on them, and it can be done. Right now, as far as a horse that's padded uneven, I've got none, and I work on a lot of horses. The majority of my dressage horses, they've got some strange problem going on. That's how I ended up working on them, right?
Right.
And, that's how I ended up here, correct?
Exactly. You came here to fix me and my mare.
You can't be fixed. You can't be fixed.
Hit me in the head with a hammer. I'll get fixed just fine. So tell me what happened with Tony Gonzalez. How did he end up fixing Cindy? Not to steer you.
What they had done with Cindy was they had padded the horse up to get the shoulders evened out, and it straightened the horse's body out and got the horse going in a straight line. Now, if you're working diagonals and your horse works a diagonal much easier to one side than the other, you got weak side, strong side. And I think it's more weak side, strong side than the thoughts. But when you look at a horse like that and you start looking at how things are line up, if all you look is the foot and all you look at is the top of the shoulder, sometimes you're missing what's going on in between. And if you've got a shoulder angle that is closed because you got a weak shoulder, and we can build that shoulder, we can get that. We know from years of playing with this, because I started this in the early 90s and have carried on since Tony's passing and all that. in which he passed in 2000. But like I say, some exercises, some working with your trainers, some let's concentrate on building the weak side. Some of these things will come together without necessarily adding a lot of pad. Most people don't want to do that. And the problem with dealing with pad, if you over pad one, you end up with compression problems. And the other thing is you put the horse in a position where they can't get away from the work. And sometimes you need to work a little bit, work a little bit, work a little bit, and there's different ways to get there. So that's why at this point I rarely, if ever, put an uneven pad on a horse.
So here's another little snippet. Then I added pads to the back legs, and this filly was a real sweetheart. They're talking about Cindy again. Eventually, she had a sense that she had able to sense that we are trying to help her walk straight. He asked his helper. Abraham, I believe, was his helper. Even Cindy was apprehensive. Finally, I asked Abraham to lead the filly and walk down the road. To our amazement, the filly no longer walked to the left. No longer did it her rear move in a right angle. She was moving straight. I asked him to walk the filly for us for a while, not trusting that what we were seeing. And then I took the filly for myself for a walk and proved that I was not influencing Jeff's vision. So at the end of the day, he got Cindy up and running or up and walking straight.
Right. He did get the horse walking straight, and then the horse has a chance at even development. And over time, if you're doing it in that way, you start weaning it off the pads and hopefully get rid of them altogether once you get the horse to where it could be. But working flexion, working shoulder movement, and that's where, like I say, Caldwell did a lot of chiropractics himself, built into it. And I've done some chiropractic training myself, not enough to say that I'm a chiropractor at all,
but you know the basics,
but some very basic stuff. And I'm not adjusting horses, but it helps give you some understanding as to some of the mechanicals as to what's going on. And
Amy, my wife, actually said that she would like to do like the chiropractor, take a couple courses, just the basics, so she can not necessarily fix her horse, but can feel the horse and feel what needs to be moved and what to expect when the actual chiropractor comes over. So,
well, yeah. And, that it's been 30 years since I've taken a chiropractic course, but that helps give me a better feel of the horse. And like I say, we'll get into Ray Morris next round, but the guy who really helped me put this together and really helped me understand how to get away from using the pads was a blind body worker and massage saddle fitter.
He was a Kiwi, wasn't he?
He was a Kiwi. And we worked together on a lot of horses, and we got where we challenged each other. We had ran clinics together, and that's how I ended up doing clinics in Australia and New Zealand. But understanding the body, understanding the muscle structure, understanding what's going on with your joint flexion, joint alignment, what's moving, what's not moving, and that's how you can look at a hind end of a horse and pretty well tell. Lay your hand on the hind end as Ray would do it, brush over the hind end, and tell you what they're doing in the front end, or vice versa. And he would nail it every time. But it was the diagonal relationships, the lateral relationships. Is the horse bent? Is and that sort of deal. And some of this starts when they are newborns, and some of this can be straightened out just by letting them get out and be horses and move their bodies when they're young.
All right, guys, stick around. A couple more segments, and we'll let you get back to enjoying your ponies. When we come back, we're going to talk about a case study by the name of Hank that Mike Stein was messing with here in the past couple days or so. So stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein.
Hank's got his own song.
He does. He'll be right back. The whole world calls me Hank.
That wasn't the one I was thinking.
Which one are you thinking about?
Hank, why do you drink?
Oh, well, it's kind of the same guy, though.
Yeah. I think Hank, why you drink was his son.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. If you haven't gone to the YouTube channel, now is a great opportunity to jump on over there. Make sure you like and subscribe over there. It just gives you another avenue, another venue to enjoy the Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein podcast. And for so you can see all the visuals that we have here. We've got a video of Mike. He's playing around with a horse's foot, and he's got a couple horses. He's got a hoof here in the studio, which we'll talk about here at the same time. So he's over there playing. footsies with his horse hoof over there. And over my far end side playing footsies is Mike Stein. How are you?
I'm doing good, Travis. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So let me switch screens here. So tell us about Hank while I'm doing all this stuff here. So tell us about Hank.
Hank, why do you drink? Well, Hank drives you to drink.
He does. Sometimes horses do.
Okay, where is Hank?
Well, that's the feet.
That's the feet.
And this is...
There's a little rough video of Hank. I was trying to film and work, and I've got my manicure job on, as you can see.
All right, so I'm not going to play any...
Okay.
You're going to walk through this, so hold on. Let me start from the beginning.
All right.
So here we go.
If you see, we've got a big cavity in one side of the hoof. He showed up. He came in to the shop where I was working, and been in training, and that's what happens when the horse is pulling and you're trying to video with one hand. But that hole went about 2/3 of the way up the hoof. Now,
this hole right here.
Right.
Okay.
Did it start from an abscess? Did it start from fungus? We don't know. Now, if it was an abscess, it blew out the bottom, didn't blow out the coronary band.
Oh, wow. Look how deep that hole is.
It's not that deep now compared to what it was.
Okay.
But no, it's a significant hole. And what I did was I popped that foot off first, did my rough prep on the foot, and then I packed some cotton in there with soaked in Navasand, left it standing on that while I was working on the other feet. When I pulled that out, when I fit my shoes to the foot, and then I went back in there with
I'm trying to get a better picture here. Hold on. Slow down. All right. Oh,
with my favorite vet's soul paint.
Uh-huh.
And it has some iodine in it. And then when I put the shoe on, and I've been doing this because this thing went way up the hoof capsule, what I was doing is I've got a medicated wax that I put under the shoe, right? Mm-hmm. Same wax. And I packed it full of that.
Now, this front of the hoof wall looks like it's getting ready to fall off. Is that right or no?
Actually, externally, there's a notch back behind the separation, and that's where the clip has been fit in. Because I want to set my clips into the wall, and depending on if we got any distortion of the foot, I might pull it in a little tighter on one side than the other. Because I want that if I want the clips on the horse, I want them to hold. So there's a point there
wrestling. There you go.
See there I've got my tools, and I'm show.
Let me back up a little bit there.
Just probing down in there. I've gone in there. You can use a curette. I've got another tool that I made myself that I go in there and scrape and clean, get any dead debris out. And then, but if you look at the hole, it is 1/3 of what it was when we first started. And then you clean out and pack it. And
does this video have you packing it or no?
No, it does not.
This is just you cleaning it out.
This is just a check looking at it. I've already scraped it out. I've had the Navasand in there. I've had my favorite vet soul paint in there, and we're just doing a little quick blurb so we'd have something for here. And here we go. Okay, here's a hoof. When I first started, I did not use my
car key.
My car key, but it was literally up about this deep.
Jeez.
And we probed. You've seen that little blue handled tool that the end of it's kind of cupped.
Yes.
We've had it in here, and I could go in there and probe and scrape and probe. Now, when you do that, go away from the laminae, because if you penetrate the laminae, you've created another problem, and go into the sensitive. But then it's like the next time we were here, and at this point, it's really not but about that deep, so it's coming out in another shoeing or two. It'll be gone as long as that's followed up on he's heading back to his original place of birth, or I don't know if he's born there or not, but he's actually headed back to your part of the country.
Florida?
Yeah, he's headed back down, and he came up from there, which the further south you get, the more of that stuff we have to chase. But the thing of it is he was there to be in work. So if we rip half the foot off, and we medicate it that way, which can be done, as sometimes it is, and if you got a foot that's just shattering, I've done that plenty of times. You can get more aggressive, but the problem is keeping this guy in the training he was up for. And dealing with that, the outer hoof wall was very solid and very strong. I skipped that area as far as any kind of attachment. I filled it with the medicated wax. During that time, there was very little extra damage that showed up. Scrape it out, make sure it's clean, treat it, boom, keep going.
So how long would it take to fully recover from the initial job that you were working on?
Well, this guy grows hoof at a decent speed, and but basically enough time to grow this, however many months it takes him to grow that much hoof down, right?
Right.
Once it grows down and you've got it all cleaned up, we just truck right along and we go do our thing.
So it's like if I was to lose a fingernail and I'm exposed a little bit.
Right. See, that's a fingernail that's been lost lots of times.
Oh, hold on. Yeah.
It's been hammer finished too many times.
You've got the hands of a working man.
I'm not starting a new fad as far as how you treat your fingernails.
How's that?
Hammer finished fingernails. Stick them on a board. We'll have treatment. We'll nail them with a hammer.
Stick them under a horse. All right, guys, stick around. One more little segment, and we'll let you get back to it. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back. I'm going to send them to your new page. To your new Facebook page.
The Equine Dynamics business page?
Yes. And away from your personal, because basically what I'm going to say is that your
personal page is
full.
Yeah.
And you can't accept any more people. So,
well, it basically is anyway, or it was.
Right. And that's what you were asking me before. So we're going to forward everyone to Equine Dynamics on Facebook. Let me see if I can find that real quick.
There's Travis.
There I am, pointing right at you.
You got anything stuck on the end of your finger?
It's just a booger.
Oh, that's what I was thinking that was.
I'm like, look, I picked my nose. You ready?
Yep.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. We are the #1 podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. If you'd like Mike Stein to come out and perform a clinic at your location, go to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says clinics. Fill out that little form. Mike will get you in, pencil you in as soon as he possibly can, and you can have him and myself, if you'd like. If you want me to come out there with you, that's
We'd
fine.
love to have you, Travis.
We can come out there to your event or your location and perform a clinic at any time during the year. And also, over to my far inside is Mike Stein.
Hello, Travis.
So we've got good news and bad news about the Facebook page. The good news is Mike has his personal Facebook page, which everyone goes to, has over the max right now. It's 5,000 memberships and all that. So Mike right now is asking you if you could go over to his business page, which if you have a business Facebook page, it allows more and more people. And we were worried about the listeners out there weren't able to get part of. We were getting complaints that people, hey, your Facebook page is.
I get a lot of people asking to be on there.
And yeah, hey, I've already got the 5,000 members. We really didn't kind of think this thing through. So Mike has created a Equine Dynamics Facebook page business style. So that allows for another 5,000, if not 20,000 people. So if you guys want to see what his Facebook page looks like, you can see this on the YouTube video. And I'm going to switch to, let me figure out what camera I'm going to use. I'm going to use camera.
Which camera you want?
I'm going to use camera 6. So this is his Equine Dynamics. And the way you search for him is Mike Stein, Equine Dynamics. And that's his business page. You see Mike out there with his, looks like a brand new clean.
That was a brand new clean rig, right?
Yes. It's the one that's sitting out front, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's not so clean.
It is. Yeah, it's definitely a work truck. So, make sure you go over to Mike Stein, Equine Dynamics. That's his business page, and it's got his hours of operation. And if you want to email Mike Stein at any time, all his information's over there as well. And let's blow this page up as well. Let's see if we can get this up past the 5,000 that you had on your personal page. And for all those that were listening that were part of his personal page, jump on over there because Mike is... Unfortunately, he shut that down and is trying to focus more on this page as well. So if you don't see Mike Stein, if you're a friend of Mike Stein, like a personal, like you've gone to his house and had dinner, he wants you to go over to his business page now, right?
Right.
All right, so there you go. I got all that out of the way. All right, Mike, so what did we learn today?
Don't stick your finger in a light socket.
Let's not do that. Talking terminology, anaerobic.
Anaerobic.
What is it? How do you get it, and how do you take care of it?
Don't bacteria up in plastic unless it's treated.
Wait, hold on. Say that again.
Don't seal bacteria up in plastic unless everything is well treated.
Okay. And how do you treat it?
There are a number of different treatments you can use for any white line hoof wall fungal type things. Most of those things are non-aerobic, and it's like picking a hoof. If you got a rotten frog, if you pick it enough times to get enough air to it, you'll probably get rid of it just because of air getting to it. But these things like to be damp, warm, and no air getting to them.
And the first chapter out of Tony Gonzalez is, I'm going to mess this up, PBM.
Proper balance movement.
Proper Balance Movement, A Diary of Lameness by Tony Gonzalez. And the first chapter we were talking about, it is the Cindy story, and a Cindy story where the horse had what they called the wobbles.
Yes. And, starting to put together the puzzle, and it's like Tony always said, answer the question why. Every time you see something on a horse, ask the question why. If you answer that all the way through the horse, you'll have it.
And the case study that Mike Stein came across, the hoof of a horse named Hank, and it had outward signs without any outward signs.
That's right. The physical wall on the front on the horse was solid. It was reasonably aligned. Just had a big cavity going up the wall. Could have started from an abscess, could have been fungal, I don't know. It did not have an open point up top if it was an abscess, because a lot of times they're going that far up the wall, they'll blow out the coronary band. There's no physical sign of that. Could have drained out the bottom if it did start as an abscess. But it was definitely a fungus area. There was some, real cheesy, as Bernie Chapman used to say, it's the consistency of Parmesan cheese.
Don't you mean Parmesan?
No, it's Parmesan. Everybody else is saying it wrong.
He must be French.
Well,
or Southern.
He was a Texan.
Yeah, there you go. Called it. All right, guys, on that note, make sure you follow Mike Stein over. If you have any questions for Mike Stein, go to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says contact us. What?
One thing you might understand, you're talking about all that fly stuff in the barn.
Uh-huh.
Years ago when I was a kid, we had this dark green crystal that you put in really hot water to dissolve, and you put it in your garden sprayer. Or you could put it in a fogger. Like it was for fogging dairy cows, I think. But you pumped it up and you could spray all your barn walls over top of your head, all over yourself, all that kind of stuff. And you could tell when you needed it again because it kept taking longer and longer for the flies to come in, light, and fall off your wall. Look how I turned out.
Sorta.
Yeah. But no, seriously, we did that, and this was back in the 70s.
Yeah, they probably banned that.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
It's probably like DEET or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's gone. All right, guys, make sure you follow Mike Stein. If you have a question for Mike Stein, go to equinedynamics.com .com. Let me slow down a little bit. And at the top of the page says contact us. If you have a question for Mike Stein, ask him a question there. Make sure you put a return address, and we'll send you a prize pack with some stickers, some magnets, and a whole bunch of stuff just for being part of the show. And over to my far hand side. Oh wait, hold on. I'm getting backwards here. Mike, you got me all screwed up.
Yes, thank you. Good job. Mission accomplished.
All right, guys. On that note, on behalf of Mike Stein over there,
have a good day. Have fun with your ponies.
My name is Travis saying see you next week.
Hi, Lucky. Night, Dusty.
You had me all screwed up.
Good night, Dad.
I was like, Tom. Oh, I said Tom.
You said Tom.
I said Tom.
Who's Tom?
Boom. At the tone, the time will be 12 o'clock. Oh, shoot.